Okay, in this video we're going to introduce you to buttons and how they can be used to change the way the program flows. We're going to get you to do some text input so the user can type in something on the keyboard. We're going to validate that input to make sure it is what we want, and in the process we'll be looking at if, else, if a little bit more deeply. I've added this little prompt here that asks you to enter your level, so it's going to be a number between 1 and 9. So if I type in 2, press start game, we should have 2 pickups and 4 drop downs. The pickups is just the number you enter, and the drop downs is that number times 2. Here we are back where we left off in the previous tutorial with our game, the 4 pickups and the 2 drop downs. So let's start the changeover. First thing I want to do is I want to add a button to my screen. To do that, I can right click and I'm going to create a new UI element, button. Okay, and as it currently stands, if I click on play, there it is in the center of my screen. Okay, so I can change the location of it here. If I click on this little thing here and hold down Alt, I can change where I want it. So if I put that's top left, so if I played it now, there it is in the top left hand corner. However, for us, we actually want it in the center of the screen, or just below the center of the screen. So we're going to go back to the game, and I'll hold down Alt, click on here, and set it at the center of the screen. Okay, happy with that, and I'm just going to move the Y position slightly down. I'm going to do maybe -5 actually. See how that goes. Alright, that's good enough. To change the text, you want to go expand the button and click on text, and there's the text there. We're just going to say submit. Okay, now I'm going to add, I'm just going to add all my UI elements at once, just to make my life a little bit easier. So I'm actually going to create, inside here, create an empty object, and I'm just going to rename this empty object. This is just for organizing things, and I'm just going to call this opening menu. It's not really a menu. What is it? Level select. Level select. Okay, and I want to put that button as part of that. The reason I'm doing this is so that I can turn on and off all the elements from that screen with just simply clicking on that tick. Okay, we'll just leave that as called button, and I'm going to right click on level select, create a new UI object, and this one is just going to be text. Okay, I want to make sure that it is, hold down Alt, click here, make sure it's in the center of the screen. Okay, and I'm going to go down here and make this say something meaningful. Select level between 1 and 9. So we can say from 1 to 9. From 1 to 9. Okay, so I'm going to now place that somewhere where I want it. So we can go up. Okay, that's pretty good. And I'm going to change the width of that so that it fits in all the words. That's good, and I'll just change the color down here. White, we'll stick with white. Okay, and just to make it clear, so now if I click on the level select group, I can turn off both things with one tick box. That's why I group them together. The last thing we need in the middle there is our text input. So once again, UI input field. Okay, we don't have to change much other than the position. Alt click there, make sure it's in the center, which it is. and I'm just going to change the Y position. I'll probably change the text and move that up slightly. Okay, so none of these will be functional right now, but if I play the game, alright, there's the game, and there they are on the screen, always centered to the middle of the screen. So all we're going to do now is make them disappear when the game starts. Okay, so we're going to go back into our game manager, because all of this will be done from within the game manager. And at the top of that game manager, we need to add a few different items. Okay, so first thing I want actually you to do is consider for this, what do we need to be able to access? We'll do this one by one actually. So the first thing we want is, I just want to make them all disappear. So I need to get access to my level select. So we've done things like this before. So we'll do it under here, set game object. So we're just going to go public. Now it's a game object. And we just called it okay. And down in start, when the game starts, we want to make this disappear for now. We also need to go over into Unity and assign this game object. So at the moment it'll give me an error because it won't know what level select is. So if we go over to Unity and we click on our game manager up here, you'll see that there is a level select not associated. We just want to drag across this entire thing. If we save that and now we run it, see it's disappeared and everything plays as per normal. You can see that over here they have been grayed out, which means they're no longer active. Okay, so it's good to know that we can do that, and we know that the field is working. The next thing we want to do is make it so that the game doesn't automatically start, because we don't want to have everything rolling around. So we're actually going to get rid of the start, really. So we'll go back to our code, and where it says start, we're going to make that, call that, let's just call it my start. So instead of automatically running it, I want to purposely call this function. Okay, so if I ran it now, the game should never start. Okay, so the text is still there because start hasn't been called to get rid of that, but there's no pop-ups been drawn, and I don't know if you can hear the keyboard, but nothing is moving around. So that's pretty much where we wanted at that stage. So now we need to make it so that when the button is pressed, it calls the start menu. So to do that, we're going to go back to our code, and we're going to make a new function. For now, this will just be temporary. It's going to be public because we want it to be accessed from outside the script. Void, we'll just call it button pressed. And pretty much all that's going to do is it is going to call my start. Okay, and put a semicolon there. Okay, we want to go back to our game, and we want to look at our button. Okay, and we want to scroll down to here where it says on click. Click on the plus sign, and we want to drag something into this field. What we're going to drag in is our game manager, because that is where our script is attached. So we'll click on, drag that in there, and in here we'll go down to game manager, and the code the function we want to call is button pressed. We'll save that and click on play. We click on the submit button, and it starts and it goes away and everything is okay. Okay, so we're getting there. Now we just want to be able to get with the functionality of our enter text here. Okay, so the way that's going to work is over in our code, we need to be able to create a way of accessing this input field. So we're going to go to look at the code, and we're going to create a new variable of type input field. We're just going to call that level select input. Any name's okay, really. We can quite easily access the contents of this by printing out the text value. So I'm just going to go down into my start, so that whenever you, or just to test it, what we'll do is we will print out level select.input.text. Okay, so what that means is I'll be able to type anything into the text box, and when I press the start button or the submit button, everything will disappear and the game will start, but it will show me what the values are first. But before we can do that, we need to go back, make a reference to this input field that we created a public field for here. So remember, anytime there's public here, we've probably got to do something inside Unity. So I'll go back to my Unity game, and under the input field, under the game manager, you can see there's now a none there, which is not what we want. We want to drag the input field into there, and we'll click play. Now if we type something in, this is a test, submit, go to the console, it printed out this is a test. So that's all working perfectly. So right now, just to recap, we've got access to this level select field because we can make everything disappear. We've got access to the text box, and we've got access to the submit button. The last thing on the piece of the puzzle is we want to check what the player enters here and alter this text field here appropriately. Okay. So we need to do some text validation. Okay, so the number validation will work like this. We need to check the input, and as it says here, we want to check the input that is furthest from what we want and work our way towards what we actually do want. So from this example, we want a number between 1 and 9. We want the input that is furthest from this, which in this case would be as if the user entered nothing. So the first thing we need to check for is if nothing is entered. The next thing will be entered, checking that it is not a number, because hypothetically, if they put submit with nothing in there, that's the most vague option they could have. The next, working our way down, the next least accurate input they could give us would be entering a word or something that is not a number. So they're at least entered something, but it's completely wrong. The next thing we want to check is that if they have entered a number, so we know it's a number, we want to check that is it a number within the right range. So we're working from least specific to most specific here. And if it satisfies all of those things, we can assume that what we're left with is an acceptable number. Okay, so it kind of looks like this. We check, first thing, the big picture is, or the most vague thing here, the biggest thing is nothing entered. And then we got, is it checking that as a number, checking that is it out of range, and if it's not, none of those things is good. So we're looking for the least specific thing to the most specific thing. So we're going to do that in our code. We want to do that before any of this stuff actually happens. We'll do it down here under button pressed. So before my start even gets called, we want to be able to do some validation of the text field. So we know the text field is called level select text input. So I'm going to paste that down there for now. So I'm going to have a bunch of if statements. The first thing we want to remember from validation we want to check for is the text field empty. So it's quite simple. We're going to say if level select.input.text equals quote quote. What do we want to happen? I'm just going to print out a message here. Print nothing in box. It should be a double equals, sorry. And we'll just put an else statement there for now and copy that into there. So basically what we're saying here, we don't need to print that out really. So basically what we're saying here is if input field is empty, which is what a quote quote is, print out nothing is in the box. If it's not empty, so in the else situation, start the game. So we'll save that and we'll test that out. So it's empty at the moment. Click on the submit button. Nothing in box. So that's working. If I put anything in the box at this stage, click on submit, the game runs. So that's our first thing trapped. Okay. From that list that we had before, nothing entered, we've got that one. The next thing we want to catch is it a number? Because technically at this stage I could type in a word big, and click on submit, and it'll still work. So nothing happens, but it printed out. Yeah, so nothing happened and it still just played the game, which is not ideal. We want to make sure they enter a number that is valid. To do that, we're going to go once again back to our code, and we're going to learn a new piece of code. So we're going to use an else if now. We are going to have that else at the end, but this is going to be an else if. Else if. Okay, so what do we want inside our else if? We want to check if it is a number. We need to, at the top here, we're going to create a new variable just called level number. And inside here, we're going to be using that, so put a semicolon there. Inside here, we're going to just bear with me. You just type not. I'll explain how this works. Int dot try pass. So it's going to try putting something in. What's it going to take? It's going to take level input dot text. Okay, we'll fix this up in a second. And it's going to output, if it is a number, into our variable that we created here. And we need another bracket there. Okay, so what this does is this function here, it tries to get an integer out of this text field. Okay, in other words, if there's an integer there, that integer will get outed into our variable that we created here called level number. If there's not, it'll just record a false. So we've got a not in front of that because we kind of want to reverse it. We want, if it's not an integer, then we want to do whatever's in here. Okay, so I'm just going to print not a number. Okay, we can tidy this up a little bit because we're going to be duplicating. Remember that whole thing, dry, do not repeat yourself? We're going to be repeating this quite a bit. So I'm going to make a new variable of type string. I'm just going to call it text input equals, and no, not that one. It's going to equal that. Okay, the reason I'm doing that is code that I can just make it nice and easy. Every time we want to reference the field, we just use the variable text input. Okay, and there should be a semicolon. Okay, we'll save that. So now if it's nothing entered, it'll print out nothing in box. If it's not a number, it'll print out not a number, if I haven't made a mistake. Big. Not a number. Alright, not a number. However, if I get back and I put the number 2 in there, it starts. However, what last problem we've got now is I could submit a number that is too big. So if I type in 10, yeah, it worked. So we need to fix those last couple of errors. So it would also accept a 0. So that's the last thing we want to trap. So we're going to print in another else if. And now we can use level number because it's been generated here. If level number is less than 1, or, so this is the or symbol. Okay, it's double pipe. That symbol followed by that symbol. So if level select is less than 1 or level number is greater than 9, so if it's outside the range, we want to do our last thing, which is going to be, we're going to print out number is outside of the range. Okay, you can put whatever you wanted. You could even divide this up and have multiple if statements if you wanted. You can else if less than 1, type print out number is too low, and then else if number is too high, print out number is too high. But I'm just keeping it a little bit simple. So if we go back to our game, okay, if I type in 0, number is outside range, but if I type in 1, it works perfectly. Okay, so two last things to do. One, I want to update this text field, and two, we then want to use that number. So let's update that text field. That's not too hard given what we've already done. First thing we want to do is we want to get access to that text field. To do that, we create a new variable of type text. So public text. We've already done this before. Text is level select text. We'll save that. Oh, we don't need the equal sign there, sorry. Save that. I'll go back to Unity and associate that. Give it the reference. So we go to Game Manager. You see there's one not there, so we can go get that text field and put that across. Okay, save that. Go back into Unity. And now it's quite simple. We go down here, and all we have to do is we go, not print, level, what's it called? Yeah, level select text. So we'll say level select text dot text equals, make it a bit, nothing. We'll make it an instruction. Please enter a value in the box. Alright, we'll copy that down here, and please enter a number. And semicolon, sorry. And finally, we'll go down to here, and we'll say, please enter a valid number. Save that. Go back to our game. Click on submit. Please enter a value in the. Alright, this box is not quite big enough to fit it all, so we could either make the box wider or shorten down our instruction. I'm just going to shorten it down. So please enter a value. Okay, we'll try that now. So please enter a value. Alright, now we type in, please enter a number, 0. Please enter a valid number, 2. Game starts. Alright, we're almost there. Now we just need to make sure we do something with those numbers, and that's pretty simple. Okay, because up here, because we were smart when we created the game, we created these two values called pickups, number of pickups and number of drop downs. All we're going to do is we're going to modify that. We'll just do that here before we start the game. So okay, number of pickups is going to become, we've got this level select here, so if it gets through to there, that's okay. So number of pickups will become level, the number they type in. So if they type in 4, there'll be 4 pickups, and number of drop downs is going to be that times 3. So the higher the number they enter, up to 9. So if they enter 9, we would expect there to be 9 pickups, but there are 27 drop downs. Alright, so let's test that out. And we'll enter a number we can count easily, so 2. So I would expect there to be 2 pickups and 6 drop downs. 1, 2, and drop downs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And still, if we pick it all up, we still win. Okay. As we're going along with these things, we should actually do some testing. So anyway, I think we're pretty much finished with this now. Good luck.